So hello everyone and welcome to our Plugged into Heritage video. We are live at the Tilley House, the birthplace of the father of Confederation, Samuel Leonard Tilley, in the village of Gagetown. It is a very windy day today, but we hope you have some fun with some very special objects from the collection, the royal gifts. So please like our video, share your comments, ask questions, and if we can't answer them while we are live, we will be sure to follow up. I'm Victoria Matthews, and today joining us from Queens County Heritage, we have Kit Ems, who is the Executive Director, and the Queens County Heritage President, Bruce Thompson. So Bruce and Kit, what can you tell us about these objects?
Well, thank you very much, Victoria, and hello to everybody who is watching. And the year is 1951, and the King and Queen of England, George VI, and Queen Elizabeth, they were planning some post-war tours after World War II, and in 1951 they had originally planned to come to Canada, but George VI was very ill, so they felt that he couldn't travel. So it was decided that Princess Elizabeth and the Duke of Edinburgh would make the trip instead and come to North America, visit the United States, but also Canada as well. So by this time, 1951, the Loomcrofters here in the village of Gagetown, Patricia Jenkins and her various business partners, they had earned a reputation for fine craft, fine weaving, and their tartan production as well. One of the tartans that they produced, designed, was the Royal Canadian Air Force tartan, designed in the early 1940s. We have some of the cones of color here for the tartan. We have the bright blue and the maroon and the white and black as well. So they had been producing this tartan for a while. So the province was aware of this. So in the summer of 1951, they had actually, province contacted the Loomcrofters to see if they would make material in the RCAF tartan for the curtains in the plane that the royal couple would be traveling on. And behind me here, we actually have the letter that the Loomcrofters received, placing the order for the tartan that would be used as curtains in the plane. Then it was decided that official gifts would be given to the royal couple when they were visiting Fredericton in November of 1951. And so the province contacted the Loomcrofters and commissioned 2 motor rugs. Now these are based on the old-fashioned carriage robes that people would have when they were out in the 18th and 19th centuries traveling in their carriages. They'd have these lap robes to keep themselves warm. So when automobiles came along, the tradition continued. And even up until this day, if you see Her Majesty pull up in her big Roy's car and she's getting ready to go out, you'll see that she will flip off this blanket that is over her knees to keep them warm. So this was a traditional type of gift that would be appropriate to the princess. So the Loomcrofters were contacted to make these motor rugs. And we have one here that we're going to unpack for you to have a look at.
So I see you've properly packaged this up. How did you do that? Can you explain that?
Well, with any textile that we have, and these become very fragile over time. This used to be displayed in the studio in one of the shadow boxes, visitors may remember. But they just became too fragile to be out on display. So we took them off and have packaged them up. Now this piece is about 8 feet long. So if we had a big box for it, it would be huge. We wouldn't be able to handle it. So we use one of these smaller boxes. We fold up the material, and using acid tissue, we're able to and we'll show the Royal Canadian Air Force tartan side.
There. Sorry about that.
Okay. One of the great things about doing things live is that you never know what's going to happen. So we'll pick up where we left off. We were looking at the two sides. So we have the Royal Canadian Air Force tartan on one side of the blanket. And on the other side, we have this beautiful light blue, azure they call it. And in the center was the New Brunswick coat of arms. Now this was an amazing production to actually have to do. The tartan was pretty straightforward to do, and we have an image here of weaver extraordinaire Enid Inch actually weaving the RCAF tartan for the royal gifts, and there she is. And we have another photograph of all of the people who were working on the royal gifts, and here we have Patricia Jenkins at the loom. This is a visitor, Emma Osborne Day from Gagetown. Here's Enid, and this is Muriel Lawrence, who was one of the business partners and founders of the Loomcrofters. And she's actually working on the design for the coat of arms. Now the coat of arms was woven directly into the cloth. That's not embroidered, that's not something that's appliqued. It was woven right into the cloth. So how they went about that is that the Loomcrofters received a photograph of the coat of arms from the province. They enlarged the photograph, and then they laid out the design, which is what Miss Lawrence is working on. And we have the actual design that's in that photograph, and it's under some plastic, so it might be a little bit difficult to see with some sheen on it. But this is the actual weaving design from 1951 for the coat of arms. Now this is really, really fine work when you actually get to putting it on. We're told by an article by Mary Ann Gray Audie from 1951 that they wove an inch a day of the crest. And it took about 66 hours to produce one of the coats of arms. So they did one for Princess Elizabeth, one for the Duke of Edinburgh. So there's over 130 hours just to do the coat of arms, and lots of color changes and very fine threads that they used. They also invited the school children from the village of Gagetown to come and participate and actually weave a shot or two of the princess's present. Also, some women of English origin were asked to come in for the connection to their homeland to be able to weave a few threads on the motor rugs as well. So they were completed, and then the presentation took place in early November 1951. And you may be wondering, why do we have this one? These were gifts to the princess. Well, our best idea is that they would have made multiples. And I know if I was making a gift for a princess or the queen, I'd want to make sure it was perfect. And there would be multiples that would be made to make sure that there weren't any mistakes that were done. So there were two that were completed and presented to the princess and the duke. This is one of the spares that was produced. And as a weaver, if you're going to all of this trouble to make something like this, you're not going to just do two and then change the warp and do something else. So this one was a spare in case something happened to the others. And this was on display in the studio for many years. There's also a fourth version that we know of that came to us just a couple of years ago. It doesn't have the coat of arms with it, but it has the beautiful tartan on one side, and it has this beautiful blue on the inside.
What happened to the original royal gifts, do we know?
Well, that's a really good question. We have tried to contact the Royal Palaces to see if the motor rugs from 1951 still exist, but we really haven't heard anything back. However, in 2016, for Her Majesty's 90th birthday, she participated in a photo shoot with the famous photographer Annie Leibovitz for a spread in the Vanity Fair magazine. And when we saw the photographs in advance, and then when we got the cover of the actual magazine, isn't it amazing what Her Majesty is actually sitting on? If you see here in the corner, she's with her corgis, of course, and she's sitting on a motor rug from the Royal Canadian Air Force. Now, is this one of the motor rugs from 1951? We don't know for sure, but boy, if you examine this photograph closely, it really, really resembles the example that we have here and what the actual gifts looked like. So we like to think that Her Majesty is a follower of Queens County heritage. So maybe she's watching today. And welcome, Your Majesty. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for showing us that the motor rugs still exist.
Is there anything else you'd like to show us today?
Well, we have another piece to show you. So after the excitement of the motor rugs in 1951, it really helped the Loomcrofters' business profile, and they continued to grow and to expand. In 1958, they had two very special commissions. One of them was to make a design of an original tartan for another motor rug to be presented to Lord Beaverbrook in the fall of 1958. So they were working on that piece, and that design eventually became the basis for the New Brunswick tartan, which became official in 1959. But the other thing they were working on in 1958 was a gift in preparation for the visit of Her Royal Highness Princess Margaret in August of 1958. So again, the province, the Premier, came to the Loomcrofters and said, can you make us something for the princess? Now, if you know anything about Princess Margaret, motor rug probably wasn't going to be the best gift for her. So in the 1950s, Princess Margaret, in her 20s, very glamorous, very beautiful, very fashion conscious. So a piece of clothing was chosen as a gift for her.
And very tiny.
How tiny is that waist? Do we know?
It is actually 20 inches.
Very tiny.
So she was a regular Scarlett O'Hara with the small waist. And of course, the royals aren't very tall. So we're not sure exactly how tall Princess Margaret was, but she was very petite. So to have a very small waist is pretty typical. So this is a skirt that was made. You can see the woven material, and it had metallic threads throughout it. So the silver and the copper and the gold, and a very fine weave that's here as well. It takes great talent to be able to weave this evenly. As a weaver myself, and as we train students like Victoria, we hammer the beater back. Very tight weave that we do, but to do something elegant like this takes some great skill and is a testament to the Loomcrofters. So this is the outside, and then it's lined with a taffeta underskirt. So as we lift it up as well, to keep this from creasing, we have our acid-free tissue inside. So we'll just hold this up so you can get a full idea of what the skirt actually looked like. The button in the back, that's actually the back. This is the front of the skirt.
Do we know who the talented weaver was?
Well, that's a really good question. And we know that two people from the Loomcrofters were part of this, Patricia Jenkins and Jean Taylor. So we assume that Patricia Jenkins was the weaver who produced this, and Jean Taylor worked with the Loomcrofters and did a lot of sewing for them. So she probably did the needlework on this particular piece. So as you can see, this would also be worn with a very bouffant petticoat. This is 1958 after all. So the skirt puffs out on its own, but also there would be some netting or a petticoat underneath that would give the nice wide version. So we'll just move that one over there, Kit.
There we go.
And further down, there was a skirt, but there was also a matching stole that went with.
So she did not receive a blouse or anything like that?
No, not that we know of. That it was just the skirt and then the stole that we have. This is quite delicate, so we might leave this one in the box. But it has the matching colors of the copper and the cream, the metallic threads. You can see the Loomcrofters label here as well. So why do we have a version of this if it was a gift for the princess? Well, again, they would have made multiples to have on hand in case something happened to the original. So this was a spare. We also know that they had more material because just a couple of years ago, we were given another version of the skirt from Mary Ellen Ono, who had been given the skirt made from the material used to make the princess's gift. That version has a hand-woven top that goes with it as well in the light brown beige weave, and it has a beautiful taffeta lining as well. So in the close-up, you may be seeing a few spots that are here. This happens with textiles, unfortunately. Unfortunately, when this was in the shadow box in the studio, it was pinned in it. So over time, the pins rusted, and that becomes part of the textile. And unfortunately, once it's there, it's there. But you still get a sense of what this beautiful piece, the matching pieces, would have looked like when they were together.
Do we know what happened to the originals?
Well, this one, we're not so sure exactly what happened. My guess is that the style of the skirt would have gone out of fashion in the 1960s and 1970s. Princess Margaret was a young girl when she received this, and as we age, things happen to us. So her 20-inch waist probably changed over time. So we're not exactly sure what happened to this piece, and of course Princess Margaret passed away in 2002, so she can't tell us at this point. But maybe someday we'll get some hint from a magazine or a story or a photograph like the Motor Rugs that we know this piece still exists. So this was presented to the princess when she was visiting Fredericton in August of 1958. She did the usual ribbon cutting ceremonies and meet and greet, but then that evening there was a banquet by the officials in the province and for the princess, and she was presented this gift. We have a photograph of the presentation. We'll show here. So here's the smiling princess in the center, surrounded by the premier and the lieutenant governor, and here she is opening this gift. This is a fabulous photograph of the princess because she's smiling broadly, which means she's probably very, very excited and interested in the gift that she received. We know that she's wearing a tiara here that's often worn by her niece, Princess Anne, in various photographs. And I love the band members here in the background who are watching to see the princess's reaction to this gift.
Okay, so I think that's all we have for today, right?
If people have posted any questions, and our apologies again for the glitch in showing this in two parts, but that's part of the fun of live videos. And these pieces are not on display in the Loomcrofters studio anymore because of their fragility. So this is the great opportunity for you to see them virtually and We have photographic reproductions in the studio when you're able to visit there in the future. So back to you, Victoria.
Okay, well thank you very much, Bruce and Kit, and thank you all for watching.